Alright, ladies and gentlemen, you know who I am. I am the two-time, no, Boxer Award-winning The Boxer. And in honor of the 2021 Royal Rumble coming up this Sunday, I am going to go back and review something from this. The Royal Rumble Anthology spanning from 1988 to 2007. Specifically, I am going to review the 1999 Royal Rumble. Frankly, there's a lot of Rumble I could go back and review. You saw my box set, so let's get started. So, the first match of the evening, the event took place at the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, California. And the opening match was champion versus champion. The Big Boss Man, one half of the tag team champions, was Ken Shamrock, took on the Road Dogg, who was a hardcore champion at the time. Neither championship was on the line because it was a regular one-on-one match. And it was pretty straightforward. You had the Big Boss Man around roughly around the 300-pound mark. The Road Dogg was around, I'd say, somewhere between 230 and 250. And so the Road Dogg was an underdog in this match. Big Boss Man dominated, got in the bulk of the offense. He was able to use his power to basically get the victory in this match. Big Boss Man did go over. It was fairly paint by numbers, but I do not mean that in the bad way. This was actually, I feel like, maybe one of the better matches on the card, like one of the better singles matches. And the Road Dogg got in some offense. But again, this was like just a regular match, so Road Dogg was basically wrestling from underneath. And Big Boss Man got the win with the Big Boss Slam. But yeah, like nothing to really write home about, but not the worst match by any means that you'll ever watch. The second match on the card was Billy Gunn, Mr. Ass, challenging Ken Shamrock for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, this one did have some story going into it. Mr. Ass had beat Ken Shamrock in a non-title match, wanted to challenge for the championship, but Shamrock kept saying no. So, Mr. Ass ended up mooning Shamrock's sister to enrage him enough, which is what happened, and of course Ken Shamrock, being the hothead that his character was at the time, attacked Mr. Ass and allowed the match to happen. The opening of the match, they brawled quite a bit. Eventually, Ken Shamrock was able to start focusing on Mr. Ass's left leg, and eventually got the ankle lock in, and that's how he won the match by submission. But Val Venus actually did have a run-in and DDT'd Ken Shamrock when there was a ref bump, but that did not stop the world's most dangerous man at the time to get the victory and retain his championship. The third match was the European Championship match. X-Pac was defending his championship against Gangrel. Now, in this one, the thing that I noticed the most was Theodore Long was refereeing. Now, he would later go on to manage D'Lo Brown and Rodney Mack, and then later became the general manager of SmackDown. Now, of course, most of us remember remember the two phrases he was known for, or the two things he was most known for, was making tag team matches and putting heels in one-on-one matches against The Undertaker. But of course, I think he actually managed someone in WCW as well, so I think it was Harlem Heat, but if you want to correct me, feel free to comment down below who he managed in WCW, and Yeah, it was fun to look back and see Gangrel, or well, any match where Theodore Long was the referee. Now there was actually a spot in there where it looked like he counted 3 down, and he just had to correct himself because we thought Gangrel had actually pinned X-Pac, but no, he had to correct himself too. It was a 2 count, and then X-Pac did win with the X Factor to retain his championship. Back when we had the European Championship. The 4th match of the evening was the Women's Championship match. It was a strap match between Luna Vashon and Sable. Sable was the defending champion, and she was attacked earlier that night, I think, on Heat, so she came in selling her back, and she did end up winning the match after Tori, the obsessed Sable fan, came in and was able to help her out. And we're not talking Tori Wilson, we're talking just Tori. It's kind of like the Mickie James Trish Stratus storyline, but maybe 5 or 6 years earlier. But yeah, the thing with this one is that I watch it and it took me a long time to really be able to appreciate Luna Vachon, because she's one of those ones where she was ahead of her time. Honestly, if her last few years in WWE happened, say, a decade later, like up until 2009, she would be remembered a lot more. She was someone who just wasn't featured as much as she should have and could have been. Or at least based on what I remember. Because you look back at the Attitude Era, you think about the Rock, the Austins, even the McFoleys and the Undertakers and all these guys who had this distinction to them. And Luna Vachon was someone who kind of got lost in the shuffle. And looking back, she deserved to be featured a lot more. So please go back and, if you can, look up some Luna Vachon matches and her other stuff. It's worth checking out. The second to last match was the I Quit match between Mankind and The Rock. Mankind was defending his WWF Championship in this one. And this, to me, was easily the best match of the evening. If you watch one match from this pay-per-view, the I Quit match. This one had a lot of stuff going into it, this one had a lot of stuff in it. Like, the table collapsed, like the Spanish announce table collapsed before The Rock could even rock bottom Mankind. You had a lot chair shots, you had, Foley even used the microphone as a weapon in that match early on. Now, this was actually done around the time that Barry Blaustein was filming the Beyond the Mat documentary. So they actually covered some of the behind the scenes stuff with this, and you see Mick's wife Colette and their daughter Noelle back when she was a kid. So you kind of get, like, the documentary does, like, sort of add to it, but at the same time the match itself was really good. You had Foley taking the bump on the circuit boards shortly before the 11 chair shots. So they had actually agreed on 5, but Foley ended up taking 11 shots from The Rock before they took the microphone, and before The Rock took the microphone and stuck it right up to Mick's face, and then they played the recording of Foley saying "I quit." So yeah, that was actually one of those fairly creative finishes to get the belt on The Rock, so that way he could go on and face Austin, and they would have that big marquee match at WrestleMania. And finally, we have the Royal Rumble match, which was part of the Austin-McMahon feud. Austin was number 1 in the Rumble. McMahon was number 2. And of course, and there was also the $100,000 bounty to get Austin eliminated in that match. So they ended up taking him out, taking actually both of them out pretty early. Vince sat at the commentary table for a lot of the Rumble as well. And Austin was ambushed, attacked, or whatever. And he ended up being out as part of, for a good chunk of the match as well. So I guess it was just a way so that they didn't have to, neither of them really had to go on a big stretch throughout the match. Because they ended up being the last two guys in the Rumble. So obviously you have to figure out how can you get two guys to go that long. But the match itself, aside from that, nothing really stood out. Nobody had that big performance or that standout moment in the Rumble like you would get from, say, the Kofi Kingstons of the world, or the Shawn Michaels skinning the cat bit that he had at the 95 Rumble. So yeah, it's like, the things that I did notice, Gilbert was actually still around, because that was back when Goldberg was pretty big in WCW, and Gilbert, of course, was kind of like that, what the WWE did to poke fun at Goldberg. You also had Owen's final Rumble appearance, which I don't want to get into just because that's a whole other can of worms to open up. Chyna was, this was Chyna's year in the Rumble, and she was the number 30 entrant. Now, this is something where people talk about the Divas Revolution or the Women's Revolution, and honestly, in terms of star power, Chyna was bigger than all of them. Because she was a lot more recognizable than any of the girls that are on nowadays. Because, like, she's someone who stood out. But, like, you could, if she was still alive, you could bring her in here, face to face with me, and she could kick my ass, and you'd believe it. Because she looked tough. Because she was. You know, Mick Foley wrote about her in his book. So she's definitely someone that you would not want to mess with. Yeah, so this was Chyna's entrance. She was the number 30 spot. Because those are, like, there are 3 numbers that matter in the Royal Rumble. The first person, the second person, because that's who starts the match, and 30. Those are the 3 numbers that matter in every Royal Rumble, and she was number 30. And the finish of the match was Austin and McMahon were both in the ring after Austin eliminated the Big Boss Man. Of course, Austin starts laying into Vince. The Rock comes and distracts Austin, and Vince throws Austin over the top rope. And that's how McMahon booked himself to win the Royal Rumble. And of course, which, you know, we can crack the jokes about the boss booking himself to win the Rumble, but at the time, you know, say what you want about Vince nowadays, but the Mr. McMahon character was, he had a lot of heat, so it's kind of hard to argue with him if you actually experienced the Attitude Era at that time. So yeah, I'd probably say it was the right call. So there you go. That was the 1999 Royal Rumble review, folks. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, press the notification bell, like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you want to see me review another Royal Rumble, then comment down below, and if it's close enough to the day, I'll watch it and I'll review it. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, good night.